Hello and welcome to Vantage this week, a show where we recap the highlights of the week gone by. It was a week that ended with a bang. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi met President Donald Trump at the White House, they set some ambitious targets to take this relationship to new heights. We'll bring you the top 10 highlights. Before the US, Prime Minister Modi also visited Paris, and that's where we took Vantage this week to cover the global summit on artificial intelligence. India and France co-chaired the summit. Prime Minister Modi was the host along with French President Emmanuel Macron, and we actually sat down with President Macron and spoke to him about the future of artificial intelligence. So they co-hosted the AI summit, but that's not all that Modi and Macron talked about. They also held a bilateral to further enhance the India-France relationship. Meanwhile, there were disturbing reports from across the channel. A deportation drive seems to be underway in the UK. They are going after undocumented immigrants. But it seems they're looking for them inside Indian restaurants. On a lighter note, the people of Denmark seem to have come up with a brilliant plan to deter Trump from buying Greenland. The Danes are making a counter-offer, proposing to buy California from the US instead. All this and more lined up. Let's get started.
Great to see you again.
We missed you a lot. It's really an honor to see you, and you have been my friend for a long time, and congratulations on having done a great job.
मैं समझता हूं पूरी दुनिया में डी शब्द का कॉपीराइट एक ही व्यक्ति का है और उस व्यक्ति का नाम है ट्रम्प।
The bromance is well and alive. We had questions before yesterday's meeting. Would Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump pick up where they left off? Would they be able to rekindle the magic? The answer, we can tell you, is a resounding yes. President Trump welcomed Prime Minister Modi to the White House yesterday. They exchanged warm handshakes and hugs. Trump also told Modi that he missed him. Listen to this.
Great to see you again.
We missed you. We missed you a lot.
Modi then met Trump's cabinet and his advisors. He also signed the visitor's book. Again, the warmth was on full display. The US president pulled up a chair for Prime Minister Modi. He watched on as the Indian leader signed the book. Afterwards, they headed into the Oval Office, which is where the US president works. Both Modi and Trump briefly interacted with the media. They took questions on bilateral ties, trade and defense. Then came the main event, the talks between the two leaders. They lasted for nearly 4 hours and covered almost all issues. After this, you had the press conference. All in all, a very comprehensive meeting, that too just 3 weeks after Trump's inauguration. So tonight, we're bringing you the top 10 highlights. Number 1, Modi has tapped into the MAGA fever. MAGA stands for Make America Great Again, MAGA. It refers to Trump's political movement and ideology. Now, Modi has tweaked it a bit, and he said his vision is to make India great again, which is MIGA, M-I-G-A. Listen to this.
अमेरिका की भाषा में कहूं तो विकसित भारत का मतलब मेक इंडिया ग्रेट अगेन यानी मिगा। जब अमेरिका और भारत साथ मिलकर काम करते हैं यानी मागा, मागा प्लस मिगा, तब बन जाता है मेगा पार्टनरशिप फॉर प्रॉस्पेरिटी और यही मेगा स्पिरिट।
Highlight number 2, focus on defense purchases. The US promised to co-produce arms with India. The joint statement also mentions new deals for Javelin anti-tank missiles, for Stryker combat vehicles and AI-enabled drones. Now, these are not simply being bought off the shelf, they are being produced jointly. But the biggest deal was hinted by Donald Trump. the sale of America's F-35 jet to India. Listen to this.
Starting this year, we'll be increasing military sales to India by many billions of dollars. We're also paving the way to ultimately provide India with the F-35 stealth fighters.
Highlight number 3, Mission 500 for trade. Both Modi and Trump have set an ambitious target. They want bilateral trade to reach $500 billion by 2030. Right now, it's $129 billion. They want it to go up to $500 billion in the next 5 years. The first step towards that is to resolve the tariff issue. Trump has called India tariff king. But India is looking to avoid a trade war. So both leaders are eyeing a mini trade deal. They have asked senior officials to start negotiations. The target is to reach a deal by September 2025, and the early signs are good. Trump praised Modi's recent tariff concessions. He also said that Modi is a much tougher negotiator than himself.
Our trading relationship, as a signal of good faith, Prime Minister Modi recently announced the reductions to India's unfair, very strong tariffs that limit U.S. access into the Indian market very strongly, and really it's a big problem, I must say. All right, go ahead, please, with the tie. With the tie, yeah.
Mr. President, you spoke about Prime Minister Modi as a tough negotiator. Who was a tougher negotiator today, and who has a better negotiating tactic when it comes to tariffs?
Oh, he's a much tougher negotiator than me, and he's a much better negotiator than me. There's not even a contest. Okay?
Highlight number 4, combating terrorism. Trump has approved the extradition of a 2611 accused. His name is Tahawwur Rana. He has links to Pakistan's Lashkar-e-Toiba. Rana is accused of aiding the Mumbai attacks of 2008, the 2611 attacks. He was fighting his extradition in US courts, but last month, the American Supreme Court rejected his appeal, and after that, it was all up to Donald Trump. And the US president has okayed Rana's extradition. He's also said that more will follow, and Prime Minister Modi thanked President Trump for his decision.
और मैं राष्ट्रपति जी का आभारी हूं, उन्होंने 2008 के जिसने भारत में नरसंहार किया था, उस मुजरिम को अब भारत के हवाले करने का निर्णय किया है। भारत की अदालतें उचित कार्यवाही करेंगी।
The joint statement also called out Pakistan. Both Trump and Modi asked Islamabad to bring 2611 perpetrators to justice. Next is highlight number 5, illegal migration. It's a key issue at home for President Trump, so Modi gave him concessions. He reiterated India's position on the issue. If they're illegal Indians, we will take them back.
जहां तक भारत और अमेरिका का सवाल है, हमने हमेशा कहा है कि जो वेरीफाइड होगा, कि जो सच्चे अर्थ में भारत का ही नागरिक होगा, वो अगर अमेरिका में गैर कानूनी तरीके से रहता है, तो उसको वापस लेने के लिए भारत तैयार है।
Highlight number 6, the India-China border issue. Remember, the Galwan clashes happened in 2020. Back then, Donald Trump was president of America, and he was very keen on mediating between the two countries back then. And it's an offer that he has repeated once again.
I look at India, I do see the skirmishes on the border, which are quite vicious, and I guess they continue to go on. If I could be of help, I'd love to help, because that should be stopped. That's been going on for a long time, and it's quite violent. It's quite violent.
Not sure if India will take it up, though, especially after last year's border deal with China. Anyway, highlight number 7, nuclear cooperation. India and the US signed a civil nuclear deal in 2008, a deal that allowed US firms to invest in India's nuclear power infrastructure, also to sell reactors to India. It was signed in 2008. No progress has been made so far. Both Modi and Trump want to change that. They have promised to build US-designed nuclear reactors in India. These are small modular reactors, or SMRs as they're called. Their capacity is 300 megawatts, which is 1/3 of a traditional reactor. Experts say that these small ones are the future of nuclear energy. Highlight number 8, the promise to expand IMEC. IMEC is the India-Middle East Economic Corridor, IMEC. It connects India's west coast to Europe, not via the traditional Suez Canal route, but overland via West Asia. The Gaza war threatened to bury that idea. But both Modi and Trump are keen to push on. They have promised to convene countries that are part of IMEC, like Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Europe. The plan is to host them within 6 months. Next is highlight number 9, and that is Bangladesh. Trump was asked about the situation in Dhaka, especially on reports of the role of America's deep state. The speculation is that the Americans toppled Sheikh Hasina. Trump, though, has denied any American role, and he said he leaves the issue of Bangladesh to Prime Minister Modi.
Well, there was no role for our deep state. It was. This is something that the Prime Minister has been working on for a long time and has been worked on for hundreds of years, frankly. I've been reading about it. But I will leave Bangladesh to the Prime Minister.
And finally, highlight number 10. Trump is coming to India later this year. Modi will be hosting the Quad Summit in 2025. Chances are President Trump will fly down for that. The hope will be to sign a trade deal while Trump is visiting. And who knows, maybe we'll see a repeat of Namaste Trump. And that sums up the top 10 highlights. But frankly, there are many more to list. For example, Modi and Trump unveiled the Trust Initiative. It aims at collaboration on emerging technologies like artificial intelligence and chips. The leaders committed to investments in data centers. They also promised rare earth cooperation, a joint mission to extract minerals like lithium, cobalt, which are key to making batteries. Prime Minister Modi also announced progress on the space front. ISRO and NASA are building a satellite together. And the Indian Prime Minister said it will fly to space soon. That too on an Indian launch vehicle. This is undoubtedly a massive moment in India-US ties because it's not just about the number of initiatives that they've signed, it's also about what they cover, some of the most important sectors of our times: AI, space, chips, rare earths, defense. As always, the key is implementation to make sure that these announcements don't just remain on paper. We are at the biggest gathering of leaders to discuss artificial intelligence. And we are bringing you the biggest interview from here, with the AI Summit host and French President Emmanuel Macron himself. It's an interview that I co-hosted with Laurent Delahousse of France TV. We asked President Macron what he thinks of AI, what it means for the world, for democracy, and how it should be regulated. We also talked about France's relationship with India and whether Paris will ban China's DeepSeek. Here are some excerpts from our conversation. Namaste, Mr. President. How are you doing?
I'm fine. And Bharat ke logon ko meri namaste.
Kya baat hai. Thank you very much. I wanted to know what can we expect in terms of announcements on your partnership with India, and as India and France work together, are you creating a new era of non-alignment in the technology space?
I think that with Prime Minister Modi, we firmly believe that India and France are two great powers. And we have a special relationship. We respect and want to work with the US. We want to work with China, but we want to depend on no one. And we have a bilateral partnership on that basis, in defense, with our navies, our fighter planes, technology, major engineering training programs. India is a training superpower. 1 million engineers a year. So more than all of Europe and the US combined. So we have that partnership. 3, we have a partnership on the environment and the economy. With Mr. Modi, we launched the International Solar Alliance to develop solar energy in our countries and in the world. We also have civilian nuclear programs. So it's a very deep-seated conviction that we want to be independent. That doesn't mean we want to be isolated, but we want to have technologies and partners that we can trust without dependencies.
Mr. President, the thing is that a lot of technology is being thrown into the market, and governments are very keen to be on board. As you said, we want to be part of the race. But who is creating guardrails? Who is making sure that this is not causing harm? Because there is real harm being caused.
I think that there should be global regulation I think we shouldn't regulate things only locally because the innovation is global. We need partnerships between private and public stakeholders, and that the right behaviors are encouraged. So I think that people should say when something has been created by AI. That's why I think that gradually we need to make sure that public and private players recontextualialize all of this and that they say very clearly this is AI and this is not. If you're able to use it and say that you did, that's a good thing and you should protect intellectual property. But they need to be clear that they did.
Are you putting the onus of that censorship or regulation on the people, just like you did with social media, that they need to do this?
I think that it needs to be governments around the world who do it voluntarily. But you know, tomorrow, who will be here? There will be political powers, but there'll also be tech players, and they've become states in their own right, in a way. Why was it so hard for social media to regulate social media? What would these people say? They would say, no, we don't want to regulate. And look what's happening in the US. You're right, and that's a challenge. What's the challenge for Europe? We all agree with what you're saying, but if you regulate before you innovate, then there's no innovation. You can say we have great regulation in Europe, but we don't have innovation. But sometimes a ban is not the answer. Yes, if we do that, we won't innovate, and that's the problem. So don't ban, but do regulate.
Social media today is safer because they have removed fact checkers. So with all of that, you've done.
Now you're talking about something a little different. One, we managed what we call the golden hour, which means that within 1 hour we can remove terrorist content. In Europe, we have a regulation, we have done it, we have implemented it, and it's going to change, right? Yes, in Europe, platforms have a responsibility when they disseminate hate, anti-Semitism or racism. But the US is not doing it. The Chinese are not doing it. India is still thinking about it. So actually, we're at the cutting edge in Europe. And we are trying to push for moderation. But you are right, that platforms said, we don't want to moderate. That's politics. We're all about free speech. Well, they're wrong. Why are they wrong? Because behind social media and in AI too, there are algorithms, and these algorithms help you do incredible things, but they always have biases, and so they need to be transparent so that you can verify them. And they need to be transparent for all. All that to say that there's a huge challenge, a huge regulatory challenge.
I wanted to ask you, are you going to ban Chinese AI in France?
Well, I don't think that it makes sense to ban a technology because of where it comes from. That's not our approach. But for all the technology all around the world, where it doesn't come from Europe, we look into it carefully if our sovereignty is at stake. We've done it in the past for technology. So we don't have this American approach of banning tech because of where it comes from, but we will think about whether we can accept non-European technology for critical sectors. Here's an example, telecoms.
It's a yes or no question. I mean, it's a yes or no question.
Well, no, we're not going to ban them today. So, yes or no, 60 seconds, it's going to be very short. Let's go. I'll ask the first question. Is AI already a threat for our democracy?
Oui ou non?
Oui. Yes.
Which country is France's most important partner in Asia?
Je dirais l'Inde.
India.
Est-ce que vous gérez personnellement?
Do you manage your own social media accounts?
Je regarde.
I look, I might look, but I don't manage.
What is your favorite way to address people? Tweets, TikToks, or the good old press conference?
Ça dépend desquels.
Well, it depends.
Comme ça.
This is the best.
Le réseau X
Is Elon Musk's X a tool for propaganda or information?
C'est un réseau social, ni l'un ni l'autre.
It's social media. It's neither one nor the other.
Mais surtout pas un lieu d'information.
But it's not for information.
One word to describe your equation with Prime Minister Modi.
Amitié.
Friendship. One word to define your relationship with Donald Trump?
Respect.
Respect.
France, AI dominating the world, or France winning the next World Cup? What do you want?
Les deux.
Les deux.
Both.
Est-ce que vous utilisez encore, Monsieur le Président,
And do you
l'application Strava
still
lors de votre
use
jogging?
the Strava
Je n'ai
app for
jamais
running?
utilisé.
I
Ah oui,
never
c'était
used
les gens qui
it.
couraient autour de
Oh,
vous.
is the,
Je crois même pas. Je pense
it was
qu'ils
people running
l'utilisaient pour
around
leur
you?
jogging à eux.
I
quelques-uns,
think people
mais
were
vous inquiétez
using
pas,
it for
la
their
sécurité est
own
bien assurée.
running. But don't
Ok,
worry, my
merci, Monsieur le
security is
Président.
fine.
Merci, Malki.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Palki, for being with us. It was such a pleasure and an honor to be with you this evening.
Fantastic.
Namaste.
The pleasure is all
Merci.
mine.
Namaste.
Merci beaucoup. Merci à vous.
Thank you.
It's not just about regulation. A big factor in AI is cost. How much money do we need to operate artificial intelligence models? Earlier, the consensus was clear, billions and billions of dollars, that's what you needed. But China's DeepSeek has upended that trend. Suddenly, everyone is talking about cheap AI. And that includes Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. He says the cost of AI usage is coming down considerably by almost 10 times every year. We'll explain what he's talking about, but first some basics. We can divide AI costs into three. The first is setting up the hardware, your data centers, your chips and other facilities, that is the hardware. The second is training your model, basically feeding data into it. And finally, the cost of using it. How much will each operation cost you? That is what the world has to figure out. Sam Altman was talking about this last cost, the cost of using AI models. In these models, information is broken down into what they call tokens. Think of them as pieces of words. Most tokens include 4 English characters. For example, consider the sentence, ChatGPT is great. So the word chat is a token, G is a token, PT is a token, and so is great. That is how tokens work, roughly. Users like you and me do not really have to care about it, but say you're integrating ChatGPT into your office or you're licensing their AI interface, then you must pay for these tokens. Look at their prices in 2023. Around $0.03 for 1,000 tokens. That's what it cost. Now look at the prices in 2024. $5 per million tokens. Do you see the drop in price here within a year? And this is just for ChatGPT's AI system. Every AI platform has a different rate structure. Google's Gemini will have its own prices. France's Mistral will be different. You can choose based on the cost and your needs. Now let's come back to Sam Altman and what he said. He says the cost of these tokens is falling 10 times every year, meaning it could be dirt cheap down the line, and cheaper AI equals more usage. More companies will be encouraged to integrate artificial intelligence. That's what OpenAI is predicting at least. And remember, this is the cost of using an AI model. The cost of creating one is a lot higher. You need a lot of expensive components like data centers to collect and store information, high-tech chips to train the models, and of course, skilled employees. American companies are leading this spending spree at the moment. In 2024, 4 of them invested $223 billion. That's Meta, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon. Now imagine that, 4 companies, more than $200 billion. But this year, they're expected to surpass that. From $223 billion to $325 billion. This is mind-boggling investment into one technology. And what about China's DeepSeek? Did they also invest such eye-watering amounts? Well, in China, you can never be sure. One estimate suggests that they spent $1.6 billion. That's a lot of money, but still lower than American firms, which brings us to the final cost, the cost of training your own AI model. Again, let's look at the numbers. Google's Gemini used around $191 million. OpenAI's ChatGPT, or GPT-4 in fact, took around $63 million. GPT-3 cost around $4.6 million and DeepSeek around $6 million. At least that's what they claim publicly. Now, all these numbers make 2 trends very clear. One, AI investment is rising. The earlier AI models could be trained for cheap, but more advanced models will cost more money, of course, billions of dollars for sure. And second, the cost of using AI is coming down, meaning there is an incentive to adopt it more widely. These trends pose a dilemma for countries like India. Do we adopt existing AI models or do we splurge on making our own? That is the question. Western firms are betting on the latter. They want more players to use their AI models. Only then will they get returns on their massive investments. For now, New Delhi's position is quite clear. It wants to create its own homegrown AI model. It doesn't want to depend on the likes of ChatGPT and DeepSeek. Of course, there's a bigger question to ask here as well. Where does the spending spree stop? Frankly, no one knows. One possible goal could be artificial general intelligence, or AGI. This is an AI that can mimic human intelligence. Perhaps that is the goal. Or maybe to create an Arnold Schwarzenegger-style robot. Who knows? This is very different from the last century space race. When America landed on the moon, the space race was virtually settled. What is that moon landing moment for AI? How many billions before we reach that? Perhaps this summit will have some answers. The dust is settling on the Paris AI summit, so it's a good time to take stock. What did leaders achieve with this gathering? Has it made artificial intelligence better and safer? We've highlighted 5 takeaways for you. Number 1, nobody wants to regulate AI. Those already ahead want to stay ahead, and those behind want to catch up. The result? No one is talking about guardrails. They want to unleash AI with minimal checks. And we saw that with US Vice President J.D. Vance. He said regulation could kill AI.
We believe that excessive regulation of the AI sector could kill a transformative industry just as it's taking off. And we'll make every effort to encourage pro-growth AI policies. And I like to see that deregulatory flavor making its way into a lot of the conversations this conference.
Even Europe agrees. We spoke to President Macron on Sunday. He said innovation must come first and regulation should follow. He wants to cut back Europe's tech guardrails. The idea is to attract more AI players, but the downside is quite obvious. The joint statement in Paris has 6 priorities. Only one of them is even loosely linked to regulation. It says AI must be safe and ethical. Which brings us to the second takeaway. Political divisions are clear. That's why the US did not sign the joint statement. 58 countries signed on, but the US and its ally, the UK, did not. The US says it did not like the talk about inclusive and sustainable AI. Donald Trump wants to power data centers with fossil fuels, so sustainable won't cut it. And the UK says the deal is not substantive enough, that it doesn't go far enough. Now, we agree with that. This agreement is nowhere near enough, but that's no reason to reject it. If you cannot agree to the bare minimum, how can we move forward? Next is takeaway number 3. India's AI vision takes center stage. Prime Minister Modi laid out certain priorities like ensuring AI access to global South nations, upskilling to prevent job losses, and eliminating AI bias. Listen to what he said.
We must develop open source systems that enhance trust and transparency. We must build quality data sets free from biases. We must democratize technology and create people-centric applications. We must address concerns related to cybersecurity, disinformation, and deepfakes.
India brought a new perspective to the summit, one that went beyond the geopolitics. We will also host the next global summit on AI. India will be the host, so clearly India is taking on a bigger role here. It wants to shape AI's future, which brings us to takeaway number 4. Europe joins the AI race. Initially, their approach was different. The European Union was happy regulating AI, not building it themselves. In 2023, they began drawing up an AI safety law. And last year, they implemented it. It was billed as the world's first AI law. But now the EU has 4 more. They have promised to relax the rules and cut through red tape. Their goal is to have a European AI model.
Too often, I hear that Europe is late to the race, while the United States or China have already gotten ahead. I disagree, because the AI race is far from being over. Truth is, we're only at the beginning. The frontier is constantly moving. Global leadership is still up for grabs. And behind the frontier lies the whole world of AI adoption.
And finally, the fifth takeaway, no roadmap for upskilling and jobs. This is one of the biggest fears regarding AI, that it will eliminate jobs, but the summit failed to address it. The joint statement says an observatory will be set up. It will basically analyze the impact of AI on jobs. The idea is to decide how education and training should evolve. Now, simply put, it's a wait-and-watch approach. And again, it's nowhere near enough. We are looking for concrete proposals and enforceable guidelines. Instead, what did we get? A lot of vague commitments. Just consider the portion on sustainable AI. President Macron spoke a lot about it. But listen to what the joint statement says. Our discussion led to sharing knowledge to foster investments in sustainable AI systems, to fostering international discussions on AI and the environment, to creating an observatory of the effects of AI on energy. In simpler words, he's saying we discussed it. That's the AI Summit's outcome on sustainability. Even tech companies are outraged. They're calling it a missed opportunity, and we agree. AI is advancing at an alarming rate. Experts say we could have human-like AI before 2030. If that timeline holds, we are simply not ready for it. You could have super AI systems with no guardrails in place. That is the path we are on right now.
We need to invest in AI-driven future.
It's day 2 of the Artificial Intelligence Summit, and clearly the moving day here. We've seen a steady stream of leaders and CEOs coming in. They're here for a lofty mission to shape the future of artificial intelligence. As we've said, India and France are co-chairing this year. So Prime Minister Modi and President Macron walked in together. Also in the building were a number of stakeholders like Google CEO Sundar Pichai, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, leaders of the European Union, US Vice President J.D. Vance and China's Vice Premier. Modi and Macron interacted briefly with some of them. After that, it was time for remarks. Prime Minister Modi laid out India's AI vision. He talked about regulation and trust. But he also flagged the risks, like the inherent bias in AI models and the need for sustainable AI training. Prime Minister Modi also said India stands ready to host the next AI summit. Listen to this.
Friend, loss of jobs is AI's most feared disruption. But history has shown that work does not disappear due to technology. Its nature changes and new types of jobs are created. There is a need for collective global efforts to establish governance and standards that uphold our shared values, address risks, and build trust. Governance is also about ensuring access to all, especially in the global south. It is where the capabilities are most lacking.
We'll talk more about the summit, but for now let's focus on the duo of the hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Emmanuel Macron. Their bromance is undeniable. We saw proof of that yesterday. The Indian Prime Minister arrived in the evening. He got a ceremonial welcome at the airport. Later in the night, he was hosted at the presidential Elysee Palace. Macron greeted Modi on the red carpet. They exchanged handshakes and warm hugs. After that, they headed inside for dinner. Vice President J.D. Vance, US Vice President Vance, was also there. This was Modi's first interaction with Trump's deputy. Take a look at this.
And after that, we'll go together for the dinner.
It's a beautiful place. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's great to be here.
Somebody wants to.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see you.
Great victory.
Yes.
And that was all yesterday. Today, the focus turned to the AI summit. Both Modi and Macron spoke to the gathering. The Indian Prime Minister has one more engagement left in Paris, a meeting with top CEOs. After that, he will leave for Marseille. He's got a number of events lined up there, including the all-important bilateral. This is Modi's sixth trip as Prime Minister to France. And under President Macron, their engagement has only increased. They met 3 times in 2024 alone. This time, we are expecting some key deals to be signed on defense sales, on nuclear energy, and on bilateral trade. We're talking about a very expansive relationship. Defense is a key pillar of that. France is the second biggest arms supplier to India. From 2019 to 2023, they made up 33% of India's arms imports, which is just 3% less than Russia. Together, India and France have led multiple global campaigns, like the International Solar Alliance in 2015 and this Artificial Intelligence Summit today. On Sunday, we asked President Macron point blank, which country do you see as your most important partner in Asia? Listen to his response. Which country is France's most important partner in Asia?
Je dirais l'Inde.
India.
If we asked Prime Minister Modi the same question, he would probably say France. Now the question is, what makes this equation tick? Why are India and France so close? We can break it down into 4 main factors. Number 1 is worldview. France has always believed in a multipolar world, just like India has. They may be part of alliances like NATO, but they chart their own path. Look at what happened in 1966. France pulled out of NATO's military command structure. Why? Because the leadership wanted an independent policy for France. And even today that holds true. Both Macron and Modi speak about strategic autonomy. That is also why France supports India's permanent membership in the UN Security Council. That is also why Macron does not speak on India's domestic issues, something that other European powers regularly do. So that is one important factor, their shared worldview. Factor number 2 is the defense ties. If you exchange weapons, you have to play nice because defense trade binds a relationship. You're selling lethal weaponry to another nation. You must help in repairs and maintenance. You must also share technology sometimes. It creates a lasting bond built on trust and respect, something that normal trade cannot do. Factor number 3 is personal diplomacy. French leaders deserve a lot of credit here. In 1998, when India tested a nuclear bomb, most Western nations condemned it. They also imposed sanctions on India. But the French leadership did not do that. French presidents have also traveled extensively to India. 6 times they have been chief guests at our Republic Day. The latest being President Macron in 2024. It shows personal investment in India, something that Indian prime ministers have also reciprocated. And finally, the 4th factor, the alignment of interests. Unlike other European countries, France is an Indo-Pacific power. They have an island called Reunion in the Indian Ocean. They also have overseas territories in the Pacific, like New Caledonia and French Polynesia. So France shares India's concerns about the Indo-Pacific, not as a matter of principle, but as a result of physical presence in the region. All these factors make this a special partnership. In geopolitics, there is nothing called a perfect relationship, though. But India and France have come pretty close. Always take 2 things when you leave home, your phone and your wallet. That's what we have been hearing for years. But in India, even if you forget your wallet, it's mostly fine because your phone has UPI. India's homegrown digital payment system. Almost every Indian uses UPI nowadays. You take out your phone, you scan the QR code and you transfer the money. India logs around 440 million UPI transactions every day. And guess what? you can use it in France too. France is the first European country to adopt UPI, so we decided to see how it works. Where in Paris can you use UPI? Take a look. Picture this. You've just landed in Paris. You're excited to see the Eiffel Tower. But first, you need tickets. So there are two options. You either search for a money exchange counter, fumbling for some cash, or you use your card, getting hit by foreign transaction fees. Sounds like a lot of trouble. But not anymore. Because now, for the first time ever, you can simply pull out your phone, scan a QR code, and pay using the good old UPI, just like you would back home in India. And I'm about to try it out myself. So let's buy a ticket to go and see the Eiffel Tower. The process is quite simple. I have my Eiffel Tower ticket portal open here, and there is a UPI QR code right on the screen. All I have to do is open my banking app, scan it, and just like that, I have bought a ticket to see this iconic symbol of Paris. No forex, no card fees, and no additional charges. UPI, we know, has become a part of daily life in India, but it does feel a bit surreal to be using it here. France is the first European country to adopt UPI. India's Unified Payments Interface Service. The deal was initially signed in 2022. It was between the NPCI, the National Payments Corporation of India, and Lyra, France's fast and secure online payment system. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi talked about it during his 2023 visit to France.
फ्रांस में भारत के यूपीआई के उपयोग को लेकर भी समझौता हो गया है। अब मैं तो समझौता करके चला जाऊंगा, आगे बढ़ाने का काम आपका है। साथियों, आने वाले दिनों में इसकी शुरुआत आईफेल टावर से की जाएगी।
In February 2024, the service went live, with the Eiffel Tower being the first merchant. The choice makes perfect sense. The Eiffel Tower is the world's most visited monument. It welcomes 6 to 7 million visitors every year. Indians make up the second largest group of international visitors. With UPI, things have become a lot easier for them. And it's not just the Eiffel Tower. UPI is now accepted at Galeries Lafayette, one of the biggest shopping destinations in Paris. Again, picture this. You walk into your favorite store, pick up a bag or a dress, and pay using UPI. No card, no cash, just a simple scan. This is not just about convenience. It's a massive leap for India-France relations. The adoption of UPI shows the confidence France has in India's digital ecosystem. It's also a huge moment for the fintech sector back home. It proves their technology is good enough to be adopted anywhere in the world. And it's not just stopping with France. More and more European countries want to adopt UPI. Years ago, Western tech was seen as the gold standard. But India has come leaps and bounds in the last decade. Digital finance is one area where India can rival and perhaps outperform Western technology. As of today, 7 foreign countries use the UPI system. For Indian travelers, this is all about convenience. But for other countries, especially in the global south, this is a template. UPI can help them bridge the financial divide, just like it did in India. Raids, arrests, deportation flights. And no, I'm not talking about the United States. This story is about the UK, which seems to have taken a leaf out of US President Donald Trump's book. A UK-wide deportation blitz is underway. The government is cracking down on illegal immigrants. There are widespread raids and arrests at warehouses, car washes, vape shops and restaurants. In fact, it was a record-breaking January for the immigrant enforcement there. They raided 828 premises, including an Indian restaurant, where 7 people were arrested and 4 were detained. What does this mean for the country and the illegal immigrants there? Why are they being deported in droves now, and how many Indians are living in the UK illegally? Our next report tells you.
Illegal immigrants being taken off a bus, made to climb the stairs of a plane with hands chained to the waist, all set to be deported to their country of origin. No, this video is not from the United States. In a first, it has been posted by the UK government in a declaration of the so-called UK-wide blitz. That's what it's being called. Because in classic Trump fashion, with raids, arrests and deportations, the Labour Party is doubling down to curb illegal immigration and cracking down on illegal migrants in Britain. In fact, this drive broke records in January. The immigration enforcement teams reportedly raided 828 premises, including warehouses, car washes, vape shops, nail bars and restaurants, which includes an Indian restaurant where 7 people were arrested and 4 were detained. Overall, the raid saw a 48% rise compared to previous January, and they led to 609 arrests, marking a 73% increase from the previous year. And while the drive has been amped up in recent weeks, it has been underway for some time now. The Starmer government has returned nearly 19,000 migrants living illegally in the United Kingdom to their countries of origin in Africa, Asia, Europe and South America. This includes as many as 118 Indians who were deported last year, second only to Albanians. And this number is not surprising. After all, nearly 745,000 illegal migrants are currently in the United Kingdom, out of which around 100,000 are Indians. But what's behind the sudden boost in taking action against illegal immigrants? According to the Home Secretary,
for far too long, employers have been able to take on and exploit illegal migrants, and too many people have been able to arrive and work illegally with no enforcement action ever taken.
But experts claim that there's more to the story. The Starmer government is under intense scrutiny over its efforts, or the lack thereof, to secure the British border from illegal immigration. And now they seem to be actively working on it. But critics have slammed the government over this, calling these performative tactics, because the timing of the crackdown moves is crucial. This week, the Labour Party's Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill is set to be discussed in Parliament. The goal is to quote-unquote smash the criminal gangs because it will grant law enforcement additional powers to take action against organised crime gangs, which include seizing mobile phones from people who enter the country illegally. But critics call it a rash move via a weak bill that won't stop the boats, followed by a hasty crackdown with deportations. But maybe Starmer doesn't care as long as it helps with desperate image building in desperate times.
So this is really a philosophy. Aero India 2025 has officially kicked off. It is the largest air show in Asia. If you like aviation, it's like Disneyland or Comic-Con. You've got military transport planes, lethal fighter jets, advanced helicopters, all of them under one single roof, or rather, air base. The Yelahanka Air Base in Bengaluru, that is where the event is happening. This is the 15th edition of Aero India. It's also the biggest in its history. Over 900 exhibitors are part of this air show. 150 of them are foreign firms. They come from nearly 90 different countries. If you sell or buy planes, this is the place to be. It's the ultimate aviation show, or as India's Defence Minister called it, a Mahakumbh of research and innovation.
मैं समझता हूं कि एरो इंडिया के रूप में आज से भारत में एक और महाकुंभ का प्रारंभ हो रहा है, जहां एक तरफ प्रयागराज का महाकुंभ आत्मसंधान का कुंभ है, तो वहीं दूसरी तरफ एरो इंडिया का यह महाकुंभ अनुसंधान का कुंभ है.
This event is key for two reasons. One, to showcase India's homegrown defense equipment, and two, to get a feel of foreign technology, maybe even make deals. You see, the Indian government has an ambitious target. It wants to export arms worth 30,000 crore rupees, which is around $3.4 billion. And to do that, India's defense makers need exposure. Enter Aero India. 35 Indian companies are taking part this time. They're looking to flaunt their technology. For example, India's Tejas jet. We're looking to sell this plane to other countries, so we need to market it well. Yesterday, India's service chiefs took the lead. The Air Force and Army chiefs flew sorties on a Tejas jet. Take a look at this first. The event runs throughout this week, so expect more such demonstrations. But like all exhibitions, there is that one showstopper, that one major attraction. In Bengaluru, that's fifth-generation fighter jets. These are the most advanced jets in operation. They have stealth features, advanced avionics, and integrated computers. Basically, the gold standard of fighter jets. Two of them are at Aero India. Russia's Su-57 and America's F-35 Lightning. It's like Superman and Iron Man together at Comic-Con. Both of them are eyeing buyers. You see, China already has a fifth-generation fighter jet. They're also mulling selling it to Pakistan. So India needs a jet of its own, perhaps the F-35 or the Su-57. Hence, this showdown at the Bengaluru airbase. And it's never happened before. The F-35 and the Su-57 have never been at the same event. They have never shared an airstrip. But in India, they're doing it. It tells you how sweetly India is placed. The jet story does not end here, though. India is making its own fifth-generation fighter plane, the Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft. Its full-scale model has been unveiled at Aero India. It's our first sneak peek of this plane. The jet is designed by India's DRDO, the Defence Research and Development Organization, that is DRDO. It will be manufactured by HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So it is a completely government-managed operation. The only problem is the timeline here. These Indian jets won't be ready until the mid-2030s. We cannot wait until then for a fifth-gen plane, which is why Russia and the US are wooing India. They sense an opportunity to strike gold. US President Donald Trump has dropped a bomb, the metaphorical kind, thankfully, but it still managed to shake the world. Trump spoke to Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday about finally ending the war in Ukraine. Trump held a press conference after that. Take a look at this first.
We had a very good talk with, people didn't really know what President Putin's thoughts were, but I think I can say with great confidence he wants to see it ended also. That's good. And we're going to work toward getting it ended and as fast as possible.
Trump says Putin is on board. He said the Russian president wants to end the war in the not-so-distant future. Trump said he mentioned the possibility of a ceasefire, and Putin seemed agreeable. Trump has formed a team to lead the negotiations. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, U.S. National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. You may have noticed something about this team. It doesn't have a single Ukrainian on it. No Europeans either, just Trump's men. And think about the call. Trump spoke to Putin one-on-one. It is only after that that Trump called Zelensky, effectively to tell him what had been discussed. Trump was asked about this. His response would probably have left Zelensky shaking in his boots.
Do you view Ukraine as an equal member of this peace process?
It's an interesting question. I think they have to make peace. Their people are being killed, and I think they have to make peace. I said that was not a good war to go into, and I think they have to make peace. That's what I think.
Why did you decide to provide support to Ukraine? Would you support Zelensky ceding territory or exchanging territory in any agreement to end the war?
Well, he's going to have to do what he has to do, but, you know, his poll numbers aren't particularly great. to put it mildly. He's got a country where, it's been savaged and attacked.
Zelensky was most likely blindsided. The Ukrainian president met a member of Trump's staff yesterday, Trump's new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Zelensky was working out a deal to give the U.S. rare metals, rare earths, in exchange for security. This was Zelensky before his call with Trump.
Putin does not want to end the war. If Ukraine was in NATO, its army would be equal to Russia's.
And this was Zelensky after the call with Trump.
Very substantive negotiations with the United States of America. I had a good, in-depth conversation with President Trump, and I appreciate President's genuine interest in our shared opportunities and how we can bring true peace closer together. It was a long discussion. We discussed many details, including diplomatic, military, and economic matters. President Trump informed me of what Putin told him. We believe that America's strength, together with us and all our partners, is enough to pressure Russia and Putin into peace.
Zelensky tried to put up a brave face after his call with President Donald Trump, but as I said, he seems to have been blindsided. Zelensky started the day talking about joining NATO, about becoming a match for Putin on the battlefield. But Donald Trump shot all of that down.
Do you oppose NATO membership for Ukraine?
I don't think it's practical to have it, personally.
If the war were to end, he says he wants guarantees of security.
We'll see what that means.
So effectively, it looks like the US is dealing with Russia directly now, and Ukraine will just have to accept whatever it is offered. Trump is planning to meet Putin in person multiple times apparently. Their first meeting will probably be in Saudi Arabia.
I think so. We think we're going to probably meet in Saudi Arabia, the first meeting. Hasn't been set, but not too distant future.
Will Zelensky be part of that meeting?
We both understand, we know the Crown Prince, and I think it'd be a very good place to meet.
Now, Saudi Arabia is a largely neutral venue, unlike anywhere in Europe or China for that matter. So a Trump-Putin meeting in Saudi Arabia does make sense. Their meeting should take place soon. But the question is, will Zelensky get invited? Or will he just have to sign whatever is sent to him after the meeting? Overall, it seems that Trump may actually manage to end the war in Ukraine. Judging by his rhetoric, Zelensky will have to give up all his ambitions. He may have to cede land to Russia, drop his plans of joining NATO, and possibly even the European Union. And if that happens, it will mean that Putin gets everything that he wants with Trump's blessing. Now let's look at West Asia. Turmoil could return to the area any day. The Gaza ceasefire was looking increasingly fragile, with Hamas initially saying it would delay the release of Israeli hostages. This prompted threats from both the US and Israel. But even as this crisis is unfolding, a new concern has popped up. A new US intelligence report which says that Israel plans to launch an attack against its arch nemesis, Iran. The report says that Israel wants to hit Iranian nuclear facilities, two in particular, in Fordo and Natanz. Now, these sites are located to the south of Iran's capital, Tehran. They're in the middle of the country. But Israel sees an opening. Now, you may remember what happened last October. Israeli forces attacked Tehran's military facilities and Iran's air defenses. This was a tit-for-tat attack. After Iran fired missiles at Israel, Israel was initially considering a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities back then as well. But former US President Joe Biden rejected that idea, so Israel had to opt for something else. They had to hit conventional military sites and air defenses instead, not Iran's nuclear sites. And the air defenses part is important here. It weakened Iran's shield against future attacks. It left the country more vulnerable to further strikes, including strikes on its nuclear facilities. And this is reportedly still the case. Iran is still vulnerable. Iran's air defenses are not back to their former levels. So Israel believes that the iron is hot, and it should use this opportunity to hit Iran's nuclear sites. There's another reason why Israel is thinking about this now. It's because Joe Biden has left office, and the new US president is Donald Trump. His support for Israel is well known, as is his opposition to Iran. During his first term, Donald Trump had applied what he called the maximum pressure policy towards Iran. And now he wants to do the same. Does this mean that Israel has Trump's support to target Iran's nuclear sites? Well, not really. Yes, Trump wants to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, but he seems opposed to the idea of attacking Iran, at least for now. He wants to try talks first.
I say this, and I say this to Iran, who's listening very intently. I would love to be able to make a great deal, a deal where you can get on with your lives and you'll do wonderfully. You'll do wonderfully. Incredible people, industrious, beautiful, just an unbelievable group of people in Iran.
Trump said all of this while standing right next to Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Clearly, he does not want to bomb Iran arbitrarily, not before trying to work out a deal. Netanyahu may have been taken aback because this is what he said next.
We also see eye to eye on Iran. That's the same Iran that tried to kill us both. They tried to kill you, Mr. President. They tried through their proxies to kill me. We're both committed to rolling back Iran's aggression in the region and ensuring that Iran never develops a nuclear weapon.
But when it comes to bombing Iran, Netanyahu and Trump do not see eye to eye. Reports say that Trump shot down Netanyahu's plan. He refused to launch a military attack on Iran, and this is what he said on social media, that he wants Iran to be a successful nation, and that reports about US and Israeli strikes were quote-unquote greatly exaggerated. Now let's look at the US intelligence reports again. They talk about Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear facility. But the strikes would have to be supported by the US. America would have to help Israel with aerial refueling, with surveillance, and with reconnaissance. The reports do not talk about a solo Israeli strike. Also remember, Iran's nuclear sites are not sitting ducks. They are located underground, with their own defenses, of course. Israel would need a lot of additional support and firepower to destroy them. Without that, the strikes would be superficial. They would just set Iran back by weeks, maybe months, but they would also give Iran more reason to build nuclear weapons. So a solo Israeli strike may end up being an own goal. At least this is America's analysis. Some Israeli officials disagree with this. They think the US is not giving them enough credit. So will Israel really go ahead with its attack, even without Donald Trump's approval? Or will it wait for Trump to try and talk things out first? I guess we'll find out in the weeks to come. What comes to mind when I say Denmark? Some of you may think about Danish Vikings or Danish pastries. The business-focused ones may think about Ozempic, the weight loss drug made by Danish pharma giant Novo Nordisk. Well, whatever your first thought, perhaps you'll want to add satire to the list. Because some Danes have had a brilliant idea, a tongue-in-cheek way to counter Donald Trump. You may know about Denmark's Trump problem. The US president wants to buy some Danish territory, namely Greenland. Though that might not remain its name for very long because the US wants to change the name too. They want to call it Red, White and Blue Land. And I'm not even joking here. A US congressman called Buddy Carter introduced a bill yesterday. It is called the Red, White and Blue Land Act of 2025. It empowers President Trump to enter negotiations to acquire Greenland and also rename it. About a month ago, a different US congressman introduced this bill, the Make Greenland Great Again Act. It also empowered Trump to begin negotiations to buy Greenland. The new bill goes one step further with the abhorrent name change. It's almost as if Trump's party members are in a contest to see who can bow lower to please the US president. But that's US domestic politics. Over here, we are concerned with the Danes. How are they choosing to respond to Trump's takeover bid? Well, the Danes have decided to make a counteroffer. Instead of selling Greenland, they want to buy the US state of California. They want to make California great again. At least I think that's how you say it. I'm not sure about the Danish characters in the name. Anyway, you're looking at a crowdfunding website, denmarkification.com. Over 200,000 people have joined the campaign to raise $1 trillion to buy California from Donald Trump. Now, before some of you take this too seriously, I must remind you, this is a satirical website. Make sure to read the fine print before you pledge. That being said, let's take a closer look. The site lists out all the reasons why buying California makes sense for Denmark. The first is sunshine. as opposed to the usual Danish weather. Next is Tech Bros. The site says they are what every democracy needs. Then you have avocado toast, Disneyland, and of course, to protect the free world. And that last reason, to protect the free world, is lifted verbatim from Donald Trump. It's his justification for wanting Greenland. The Danes do not stop here. They list out the reasons why Trump might actually sell California. And top of the list is his well-documented enmity with the state. Go through the site and the jibes don't stop. Then there's the last part about Danish values. Rule of law, universal health care, and fact-based politics might apply. I'm sure a lot of Americans wouldn't mind universal health care. I won't comment on the other things. The petition ends with, sign now and let's make New Denmark a reality. Now, of course, all this is satire. It is ridiculous. But that perfectly sums up this entire situation as well. The US president wants to buy Greenland from Denmark without really caring about what Greenlanders want. This is the year 2025. How is that any less ridiculous than this Danish petition to buy California? The satire serves to highlight the absurdity of imperialism in the modern age. However, considering the laws American congressmen are trying to pass, they might already be up to their necks in absurdity right now.